Imagine you have a machine that can detect a variety of diseases from a drop of blood. Everybody wants the device, investors are forcing their money on you, but there's a catch, it's all a scam.
Wow. In 2003, then 19-year-old Elizabeth Holmes dropped out of Stanford and founded Theranos with the hope of using small amounts of blood, just a few drops, to do what normally took numerous tubes.
Welcome to Invest with Jiri. Today we are going to talk about the Theranos financial scam. We'll answer questions. Is the product or truth more important? Does the Edison machine really work? How did the Theranos fraud hurt investors? How were Holmes and Balwani punished? Was there something real about Elizabeth Holmes? Is the product or the truth more important? In 2003, Elizabeth founded Theranos. 19-year-old ambitious Elizabeth Holmes, who had dropped out of Stanford University, founded Theranos with the goal of revolutionizing blood testing with a device called Edison. The innovative and compact device was supposed to be able to analyze blood samples using just a few drops of blood, which would be much more efficient than traditional blood collection.
What resulted is this black box, a mini lab. The company says it can run up to 40 different tests on a tiny sample of blood.
We've designed it to allow for the same operations that a technologist could do in a laboratory.
What was the sequence of events from the takeoff to the conviction to the imprisonment of Mrs. Holmes? In 2004, the company raised $6.9 million, leading to a $30 million valuation. Additional rounds of funding brought Theranos' valuation to $1 billion in 2007. Holmes has managed to impress the world with her deep voice and her rhetorical skills,
So that they begin to understand that they have this basic human right to get access to information about their body that can change their life. We can begin to engage people in the process of finding some of this information out in time to do something about it.
After a decade of operating in relative secrecy, Holmes introduced Theranos to the world in 2013 through press appearances and a website unveiling. A year later, the company had reached a staggering valuation of nearly $9 billion. Holmes became a multi-billionaire with her 50% stake. However, the company's technology never made it past peer review in medical journals. Theranos reached the top its valuation thanks to the Capital Blue Cross insurance company. In July 2015, Pennsylvania insurer Capital Blue Cross chose Theranos as its preferred lab provider, contributing to a $10 billion valuation that made it one of the most valuable companies in biotech. Holmes was at the peak of her career.
Such an incredible story. A woman creating this $9 billion company.
Everyone worshipped the ground she walked on. She could do no wrong. She was the next Steve Jobs.
She has been compared to an innovative businesswoman standing alongside titans of business like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. In 2015, Forbes named Holmes the youngest and richest single woman in the US. Does the Edison machine really work? In October 2015, twist occurs and the truth begins to come out. The Wall Street Journal published a devastating article revealing that Theranos had to suspend the use of its unimproved nanotester for all but one type of blood test. The FDA issued two partially redacted reports in October 2015. Fortune magazine reported that Theranos had sought $200 million in additional funding just prior to the first Wall Street Journal article. A $350 million deal with Safeway fell through in November 2015. People were beginning to ask, where is the truth?
Give her a chance to answer the charges raised in the article. Ms. Holmes, welcome back to Mad Money.
This is what happens when you work to change things. And first they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world.
More and more convictions of fraudulent conduct began to emerge. In December 2015, a damning article in the Wall Street Journal was published. In January 2016, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, published a damning report on the California-based Theranos laboratory. Culmination occurred on March 14, 2018. The SEC charged Theranos, Elizabeth Holmes and former President Ramesh Sunny Balwani with widespread fraud, marking the downfall of a company that once promised to revolutionize healthcare through innovative drop-of-blood testing technology. How did the Theranos fraud hurt investors? It is a pity that Theranos was not listed on a public stock exchange, because we would have had a clear picture of the share price. In any case, we can see this in the price of Enron, which, like Theranos, has perpetrated one of the biggest frauds on its investors by manipulating its books. The chart shows the classic share price performance. First, the stock skyrockets and all investors try to add. If this were Theranos stock, this period would last 12 years. Then, all of a sudden, the share price reverses and almost free falls to zero. The company goes bust and investors lose everything. According to CNBC and the Wall Street Journal, investors in Theranos have lost more than $600 million. Investors who suffered losses include the founders of Walmart, Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos, media mogul Rupert Murdoch. Before the affair broke out, the company's executives included Henry Kissinger, the former head of US diplomacy, and former Defense Secretary James Mattis. Holmes was in the circle of the most influential people in America. How were Holmes and Balwani punished? 15 June 2018 marked a significant turning point for Elizabeth Holmes and her boyfriend Ramesh Sunny Balwani. A federal grand jury indicted both on 9 counts of fraud and 2 counts of conspiracy to commit fraud. A press release from the US Attorney's Office revealed that Holmes and Balwani orchestrated a multi-million-dollar fraud on investors and separate fraud on doctors and patients to promote Theranos. On January 3, 2022, Elizabeth Holmes faced sentencing. She was convicted on 4 of 11 federal charges of conspiracy to defraud investors. She was subsequently sentenced to 11 years and 3 months in prison.
Tonight, the epic rise and downfall of disgraced Theranos founder Elizabeth Holmes has come to an end. The former CEO reported to a federal prison today for defrauding investors out of hundreds of millions of dollars.
According to recent reports, she will serve 2 years less for good behavior. Balwani was sentenced to 12 years and 11 months in federal prison and 3 years probation. Both were fined $452 million, which will be paid to the victims of the fraud. Holmes fought to the end. Despite several attempts to delay her sentence through appeals, Holmes finally appeared in the Bryan federal prison camp in South Texas on May 30, 2023, sealing the fate of one of the most prominent figures in the rise and fall of Theranos. Was there something real about Elizabeth Holmes? This incredible woman even manipulated her voice, artificially lowering it because research suggests it implies greater power, competence and credibility.
And we'd like to see a world in which every person gets access to this type of basic testing, and the types of tests that are done are ones that provide insight into the onset of disease.
This artificial lowering of voice pitch has been identified as sociopathic behavior. The wounds Holmes inflicted on hundreds of those affected will bleed for a long time. She has affected the lives and especially the wallets of many people. Once she had achieved multiples of the company's valuations, she was caught in a drug of lies and manipulations. She may have had a malfunctioning device, but everyone wanted it, everyone admired her, and she was at the top of the business world. It was hard to stop. What would you have done in her place? You'd shut down the business, go into seclusion, report everything to the press, throw the company into insolvency, return investor money. Holmes continued on despite the fraud, even at the cost of possible prosecution and imprisonment. She thought it'll work out somehow. But it didn't. In 2016, Jennifer Lawrence accepted a role in a new movie based on Elizabeth Holmes. I couldn't find out if the movie is made or what stage it's in, but I'm looking forward to it. There's a 2019 documentary on HBO called The Inventor Out for Blood in Silicon Valley that illustrates the whole Theranos affair, including Holmes' confessions. That's all for today. Take care and choose well what you invest in.